All right, so predictive analytics. So here's the basics around predictive analytics is trying to identify the people that might consider selling. So if you're prospecting, would it be advantageous to you to have a targeted list of people that might be interested in selling? Would that be of a benefit as opposed to blanket prospecting? Okay. So some of you are nodding yes, others of you are ignoring me, which is fine because I was single for a long time. I've been ignored before. So predictive analytics is all about trying to identify in your community who are the people that you should be targeting that give you the best chance of finding a seller. Okay. Now there are companies that sell this to you for money. Okay. They'll say, hey, we're going to give you a list of all the people that might be looking to sell, the hot list in the community. Now, fortunately for all of you, you know me, which usually doesn't work to your advantage. But in this case, it will. Because I can give you all of the formulas that these companies use to tell you who are the people most likely to sell, and you don't have to give me a thing. Yay. Robert for president. God, I hope they don't look at it. Anyways, okay, so we're going to go over some of those formulas to identify who are the people that are most likely to sell. Now, is there any system that is foolproof and is by far going to give you a bunch of seller leads? No, there's nothing foolproof. What the predictive analytics does is it gives you the people that, based on some algorithms, hey, these are the people that within this community might be thinking about selling more than the person next door. That's what we're targeting here. Okay. So I don't want anyone to call these different groups and say, Robert, none of these people wanted to sell. There's nothing foolproof. All this is specific target prospecting. So then that way you have a better chance of finding someone looking to sell. All right, so let's jump into these. Now, none of these are listed in any particular order of importance or, hey, this one's better than the others. I have my particular ones that I think are better than the others, but everyone's different. All right, so let's start. Let's start at the top. We'll go down to the bottom in terms of age. So the first one in predictive analytics is two-story homes bought 20 or more years ago. Okay, two-story homes bought 20 or more years ago. Now, if you live in a community where there's not a lot of two-story homes, then what I would do is go homes that are 2,500 square feet or larger bought 20 or more years ago. Okay. Two-story is more ideal, but if you need to expand the list, go 2,500 square feet or larger. Okay. So before I break that down a little bit, a couple other filters, here's let's the thought process of this. Typically, when somebody buys a two-story home or a 2,500 plus square foot home, is that usually their first home? No, usually not. Okay. There's obviously rare occasions, but usually that's a second, third, or fourth home. So if it's not your first home, you're probably in your 40s, 50s, or 60s when you bought it. That makes sense? Most two-story homes, if it's not a first home, probably 40s, 50s, 60s. So now if we fast forward 20 years, the person who owns that house is now in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. When you're in your 60s, 70s, and 80s, is it fair to assume you probably don't have kids living with you? Okay, is that fair to assume? Some of you are looking at me very disappointed, like I've hit a nerve. You would think, let me tell you my story. All right. So the kids probably don't live there anymore. Obviously, there's certain situations, right? Like there's obviously things happen. Kids sometimes get into trouble. Hey, they got to move in. It's all good, right? Or there's could be disabilities, things like that. But on average, kids are probably gone. So you have a two-story home that's probably 4 or 5 bedrooms, 3 or 4 bathrooms, and there's probably only two people living in it. So do you really need the size of this house anymore? No. Now, when the house is bigger, what is also more expensive?
Maintenance.
Maintenance. For those of you that are in Southern California, how's the water bills going? I get fined every month. I get fined every month because I'm only supposed to water on certain days. And I go, I made a lot of money for this house. I'm going to keep my grass green. So you do whatever you want. Okay. The electric bills are going higher. Water bills are higher. So now I've got this larger house that I don't really need the size of anymore for two people. The maintenance bills are more expensive. I don't need that anymore. And as I get older, 70s, 80s plus, what would I really love to avoid in a house in this situation?
Stairs.
Stairs. Okay. As I get older, I want to avoid the stairs. So I have all these factors in play that make me a candidate of someone that maybe this house isn't for me. Everybody with me so far? Okay, so now let's look at the financial aspect of it. They bought the house 20 years ago. So if they haven't done a bunch of cash out refinances in the last 20 years, the house is either paid off or close to. And well, let's have some fun here. Does anyone know what the roughly the average price of a home in their market was 20 years ago?
250.
250. And what's the average
That's
price of a home in your market today?
550.
550, and that's probably being pretty conservative. Some of your markets are going to be 250 and now they're worth 950. Okay. So I bought the house 250. Now it's worth 550, 650. It's worth a lot more. And because the house is either paid off or close to, I'm sitting on a bunch of equity. So therefore, I could sell this house and probably pay cash for something smaller that's more comfortable for me as I get older in years. Does this make sense? So ideally, these are the type of people that are perfect candidates of someone that might be looking to sell. Now, if I get the listing, they're going to need somewhere to go. So which means I could also then do what?
Help them buy.
Help them buy. So in a situation like this, I have an ideal seller that might then be looking to buy potentially in the same area, or they might be looking to buy somewhere else that I could refer out. But now I've got a perfect candidate of someone to go to, and it's simply just going after two-story homes bought 20 or more years ago, or 2,500 plus square feet. Now, one of the other filters that some of these companies will go off of is age. Well, you know what? We're looking for 55 plus. Okay, but again, it's a two-story home. Chances are they're over 50. Okay. And they can look at other different factors. But here's the other thing, too, is they can look at their equity position. But the problem when you go into some of these filters, I'm just letting you know this because some of these other filters come into play. They could say, well, we could figure out the equity position, meaning how much, equity they have in the house, and they're going to try to figure that out based on their loan. Well, what if they have a second mortgage? What if they have another lien on the house? So sometimes that doesn't get accurate. If I were you, I would just stick to the basics of those parameters and just go off of that and go from there. Now, here's what I would suggest going after this particular group. I think the more direct you are as to why you're calling somebody, the better response you're going to get. So when we call expired listings, does the script say, hey, I'm just calling the neighborhood, letting everybody know about what's going on in the marketplace? Is that the expired script? No. We call an expired and going, hey, we saw that your home came up on a computer as an expired listing. That's why I'm calling you. I would take the same approach with this. So I would call these people and say something to the effect of, look, I'm reaching out because we're working now. Now the wording is very, very important here. Okay. We're working with a lot of people like yourself, and I'm gonna post the script in the chat box. We're working with a lot of people like yourself who have owned these larger homes for 20 or more years that are looking into potentially cashing out and downsizing into something more comfortable. Have you thought about doing that? Now, here's why. Here's why that go about that. Number one is people don't like to be first. Everybody agree? Nobody likes to be the guinea pig. Nobody likes to be first, but what do people also don't want to be? They don't want to be first, but they also don't want to be what?
Last.
Last, right? The comfort level of human beings is in the middle. So if I say we're working with a lot of people like yourselves, and you can say that because we do work with a lot of people like that. Instantly, the trigger goes off is, oh, they're talking directly to me. What do you mean other people are doing this? Right? I don't want to miss out. I don't why are other people doing this and we're not talking about it? That's our nature. So if I word it in that particular way, I'm going to capture their attention. All right, but I'm just going to go right at them as to why we're doing this. Okay, so that's number one. The second one is the exact opposite of that. The second group of predictive analytics. 1 or 2 bedroom condos bought 3 or more years ago. 1 or 2 bedroom condos bought 3 or more years ago. So let's think about this, right? Pretty much the polar opposite. If somebody buys a 1 or 2 bedroom condo, chances are is that their first home.
Yes.
Chances are, right? There's obviously situations, right? Because they could be the people that just sold their 2-story home and went down to a condo. So they could be that. Could be doctors. I've worked with a lot of doctors in my career who are on-call doctors and don't want big homes for maintenance purposes. Okay. But chances are it's someone who got into homeownership. So now I say 3 or more years because that gives you a little bit enough time to build up some equity in the property. Because ultimately, what the goal is for them to sell the condo, take the equity, and purchase a single family residence. Because when somebody buys a single family residence, do you think the problem is typically the monthly payment or the down payment?
Down payment.
The down payment is the problem. So they bought the condo because it was a smaller price and they could get the down payment. It's typically the down payment, not the mortgage payment. So if they've built up enough equity over the last 3 years by paying down the mortgage a little bit and then getting a little bit more money in the profit of the house, they can then sell that and have money for the down payment of a single family residence. Everybody with me so far? Okay, so that's more the problem. They need the equity. So that's why we say 3 or more years. Now, 3 might be cutting it tight because the last 8 months of 2022 didn't quite build a lot of equity. But you could say 3 or more years and at least give yourself a chance. So again, it's their first house. So there's a potential that, hey, this was my step into homeownership, but I want a single family residence. I'm ready for that now. Or what else could happen for someone that has a 1 or 2 bedroom condo that now they need to upgrade?
Having babies.
Family grows. Could have been a single person that bought it. Now they have a significant other. Okay. And I don't know about you, but 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom condo with a significant other is not ideal for an extended period of time. Okay. And if you're the guy, you're going to be showering outside. So so make sure there's a park nearby.
With the sprinklers.
Yeah, make sure there's a park nearby. Yeah, with sprinklers. So it could be that there's a significant other, or it could be, as Gabby said, you have a baby or you have another one, and it's like kind of forced out of this place. It's just too small. So that could be another reason. There's a third factor when you think about the world we live in today. Are there a number of people that are working from home? Yeah. Now, there are some businesses that are pushing people back to the office, and that's great. We go to the office. We tend to try to get people into the office. There's a lot of businesses still that probably are never going to go to the office, and if they do, it might be just part-time, maybe a day or two a week. Well, if I have a 1 or 2 bedroom condo, sometimes working from home is not ideal, especially if I'm in an older condo when I can hear everyone around me. It makes it more difficult. So I might need a single family residence if I'm working from home. So there's all these factors come into play. So now I target these people. Again, I'm going right at them. We're working with a lot of condo owners like yourself who feel like the walls are closing in on them and they're using their equity to purchase a single family residence. Have you thought about that? Now, what's going to be the big pushback from a condo owner into buying a single family residence? What's going to be the pushback you're going to get?
Interest rates.
Interest rates. Essentially, I'm not going to qualify.
Payment.
Where am I going to
Maintenance.
buy? I'm not going to qualify for a house. Right? That's going to be your pushback. So the way that you have to pitch this is hope. The two-story home doesn't need hope. They've got all the levers. They've got the equity, they've got the house, they're down. They don't need your hope. The condo owner buying to a single family residence needs your hope. Okay, so they're going to be, well, I'm not even going to qualify for anything. Homes are so expensive. I totally get it. But here's the thing: if it's possible to sell this house, take equity, and purchase a single family residence, would you consider doing it? Okay, I'm just providing the hope. And if they say, yeah, I would consider it, that's all I'm asking you. Let's just figure out how much equity you would get out of this house. Then we'll send that number to the lender and they'll tell you what you qualify for. You never know. It doesn't cost you anything. Okay. But here's what's really neat about the condo to the single family residence. The single family residence is going to be a higher price, correct? So the principal and interest payment's going to be higher. But what do you what is it you no longer have to pay when you move from a condo to a single family residence?
A higher
Hopefully
HOA.
HOA.
The HOA. So here's what's really interesting. Sometimes the total payment is not much higher. The principal and interest payment will be a few $100s, $1,000 higher, especially with rates being compared to what they probably bought it at. But when you say, yeah, but we're also eliminating that $450 HOA fee, it's like, wow, so actually my total monthly payment's only going up $150, even though I'm getting a single family residence. This happens all the time. So again, it's providing that hope, right? Look, it's possible. It's possible for you to do this. Okay. That's going to be the key to get these people moving forward and get them in the game. But guess what? So you get the condo listing and they're going to need a place to buy, which means you get to do what?
Help them buy.
Help them buy. Hey, multiple deals. This is great. And then maybe you double end the deal. Oh my gosh. And then that's 3 deals. And then the person who buys it needs to sell their house. And then you take, oh my God, there's so many. We're getting out of control here. That's just how my brain functions. I'm always moving forward. That's all. It's just how my brain works. Okay, so there's 2 of them. All right, so let's go to the third predictive analytic. Third predictive analytic. Figure out what the average turnover time is in the community, meaning how long on average do people keep their home before they sell it? Now, you have to be very careful, though, on this particular predictive analytic because you have to separate single family residences and condos. Because condos, the turnover rate for condos is twice as fast as a single family residence. So if you do all homes, it's going to skew the numbers. So try to figure out how much time do people keep a single family residence before they sell it? How much time do people keep a condo before they sell it? Okay. You could probably lump condos and townhomes into the same thing. So let's say that, oh, well, in my neighborhood, it's every 15 years that somebody sells a house. Great. So then what you do is you get a list of all the people that have owned their home between 12 and 17 years. Okay, a couple of years below, a couple of years above. And then you target those people because if the average is 15 years, I want to get the people that are circling that average. Okay. So find that out and then get the list of those people. And again, you're going to now you're going to go right at them. Okay. And when I say go right at them, because some people take this the wrong way, I'm not saying go right at people like in a, aggressive way. I'm saying go right at them as far as you're just going to tell them exactly why you're calling. Now, the beauty of this is you can kind of have some fun with it. This is kind of a fun script because essentially you could tell people, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, how are you doing? Hey, I'm just giving you a call because I don't know if you know this, but in your area, the average person sells their single family residence every 15 years. Did you know that? No, I had no idea. Yeah, and I see that you bought this house 14 years ago, so I'm curious, are you going to be selling in the next year? Like I can have some fun with it, but what am I doing is kind of planting that seed. A lot of people are gonna be like, no, I'm good. But some people are gonna be thinking, well, that's kind of interesting. Should we be selling? Is that kind of thing. So I'm targeting the people that are right on that threshold. Okay, because it's giving me the best chance. The numbers are what the numbers are. If the average home is selling every 15 years, there's a reason for that. Homes are selling every 15 years. So let's find the people that are close to that number and let's go after them directly. All right, good stuff. Questions so far on what we've gone over? Is any of this helpful so far? Or am I just
Mike?
entertaining?
Very
Robert.
All right, good stuff.
entertaining too.
Robert,
Entertaining too.
Oh,
Yes.
Robert,
Okay.
to
Yes.
find the average years a single family home or a condo sells, can we determine that ourselves or do we need to ask title?
I would
help.
just ask title because they could probably pull it faster.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure we could, but I would just go to some other source and
Okay.
get that information. Yep. Anything I can do to have somebody else pull stats for me or pull stuff for me would be great. Now, to Agnes's point, your title reps can pull all these lists. Okay. So you could go to your title rep and say, I need a list of these, I need a list of these. They can pull all these lists. Now they can get more specific, which these lists shouldn't cost you a dime. Okay. And if they try to sell you these lists for money, you let me know and I'll call your title rep and you won't pay $1. Okay. Because I'll just say I can refer them to another title rep that will get it for no cost and then give them all the title business. Which do you prefer? And they'll say, no problem, we'll give it to them. This is the way this goes. I'll be the bad guy. Okay. What they might do though is try to upgrade you and say, oh, well, we can also filter by this for this. Okay. Just give me this list. I don't want to pay anything. Okay, but the title reps can pull all this information. Okay, next one, predictive analytics. Now, this one requires a little bit, this is more of a long-term predictive analytic, but hear me out on this. And if anyone ever does what I'm about to describe, you would probably make a lot of money, okay? But this one's a little more long-term, so hear me out. You're going to call a list of apps. You're going to get a list of absentee owners in your area. Now, the phone numbers might cost some money. Phone numbers for anything are going to cost some money. That's the part you're going to have to pay for. Now, if you want a door knock, that's different. But these lists don't cost any money. The phone numbers would. Get a list of absentee owners. You're going to call these absentee owners. I'll share the script again. Now, ideally, first of all, you're just going to see if they want to sell. Okay. Are you thinking about cashing out on this low inventory market? If they say yes, great, you have an appointment. If they say no, now what you're then going to do, I'm going to walk you through the absentee owner process, and then we're going to get to the predictive analytic part. Because absentee owners are so great because there's so many opportunities to find a deal. Are you thinking about selling? They say nope. Then I'm saying, okay, great. So obviously you love the rental income. Yes, I do. Okay, well then rather than having one rent per month, why don't we sell this property and exchange it for units so you can get 2, 3, or 4 rents per month? Wouldn't that be great? Okay. And they say, no, Robert, this property is a cash cow. I make so much money off of it. I'm never selling it. Okay, great. Well, have you thought about adding to your portfolio? You've obviously bought at least one investment property. Think about maybe buying another. So there's my third opportunity. They say, nope, we're on hold for a while. Now, if they own an investment property, what else can I assume that they own?
Their primary home.
Their primary residence. I would assume that if you own an investment property, you own a primary. And do you, for those of you that work with investors, do you know investors that own multiple properties? So my fourth opportunity is say, okay, great. You don't want to do anything with this property, you're not buying. What about the other properties that you own? Your primary, any other investments? You looking to do anything with those? So I have four opportunities to find a deal. That's not the predictive analytic, but it's still a good point. So let's just say after all that, it's no, 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 no. Now here's where we're going to get into predictive analytics part is you're going to say, okay, when does the lease expire on this property that I called you on 123 Main Street? When does the lease expire? And I'm going to say, well, it expires in March. Great, thank you. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to get some sort of sheet, Excel sheet, Google sheet, whatever, right? And you're going to put the name of the owner, their phone number, the property address, and the date the lease expires. Now let's get into the predictive analytics part of this. Why is it important to know when the lease expires?
They may change their mind and maybe they want to sell.
Because of why?
The
Why might they
economy.
change their mind?
The economy.
They don't want to
No.
be a landlord anymore.
They don't want to be a landlord anymore because what is about to happen? What do I now know is about to happen?
The tenant's gonna leave.
The tenant's going to leave potentially. I now know when the tenant's lease is up. So if they tell me that in March the lease is up, I'm going to reach out to them maybe 30 to 45 days prior to that. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, it's Robert Century 21. Hey, we spoke a couple months ago. You mentioned your lease was up for your tenant in March. Did they give you a notice to vacate? And they say, yeah, they did. Oh, interesting. So are you maybe thinking about cashing out now or exchanging this property, or are you going to go through this process of trying to find another tenant? Now, here's the thing. If they say, no, I'm going to rent it out. Okay. How long are most residential leases?
A year.
A
12
year,
months.
which means that I'm going to call them the same time again next year. Hey, you leased your property out a year ago, so I know that the lease is about up. Did your tenant give you a notice to vacate? Yeah, they did. Oh, wow, 2 years in a row that you've got to find a new tenant. Are you thinking about potentially cashing out on this property? Are you going to go through this tenant process again? At some point, if I'm calling every year at the exact right time, are they potentially going to sell that property?
Yes.
And I'm the one that's in front of them all the time. Now, check this out. Imagine if I got 3 absentee owners a week where I got there. I called them, I went through that script, they gave me the date the lease expires. So I have their name, their phone number, their address, and date the lease expires. And I did even 3 a week. Out of 40 weeks a year, I would have a list over the next year. I'd have a list of 120 people. And I knew exactly when the lease was going to expire on all 120 of these properties. And I called all of them 30 to 40 days out. Are some of those people going to sell their house? Oh, and I have the timing. I've got the timing perfectly set to call them because I know when the lease is going to expire. On top of all the other benefits of having that list. Everybody with me? One day, probably not today, but one day, somebody's going to do that. And I might be gone at that point. But I want somebody to say thank you for paying for my kids' college, funding my retirement off of that idea. That's a good one. All right, but you're giving yourself that predictive analytic because you have the timing right. Now, there's one more point to that predictive analytic. If I know, let's see if anyone gets this. If I know when the lease is expiring, what else can I do that gives me an advantage of trying to find a deal?
Go
Target
to
the
the
renters.
tenants.
Yay! I go door knock. I go door knock because the tenants live there. Hey, Oh, yeah, can I help you? Yeah, I was actually speaking to your landlord recently, and he said the lease is going to expire in 60 days. I'm just curious, are you thinking about renewing your lease or potentially buying your own home? Oh, we're thinking about buying. Right on here. Yeah. See? No things. All right. There's a couple of things there on predictive analytics. Questions on anything we've gone over so far? All right. Very good. Okay. Last thing I wrote down here on predictive analytics. Now, this is a very old, tried and true predictive analytics thing. When a home lists and then sells within a quarter-mile radius, depending on where you live. If it's bigger homes, it might be a more larger radius. But if you're in just, most of the neighborhoods that probably we live in, within a quarter-mile radius, within 90 days, there's going to be 3 to 4 new listing contracts signed. Used to be more, used to be 5 to 6, but now it's 3 to 4 because it's gone down a little bit. But I promise you, if a home lists and sells within a quarter-mile radius, a couple hundred home radius, there's going to be 3 to 4 listing contracts signed. Now, they might not hit the market all at the same time, but there are going to be 3 to 4 listing contracts signed within 90 days of that house. So if you want predictive analytics, find a home that's listed, start planting the seeds of either calling, door knocking within a quarter-mile radius. And then once it sells, start really going after it as well, because there's going to be 3 to 4 more listing contracts signed within a quarter-mile radius of that house. Almost guaranteed. So one of the oldest predictive analytics there are is really targeting that quarter-mile radius around a home that's listed and sold. But you want to start with the listed so you can start planting the seeds and start figuring out who's kind of thinking about it. Okay. And then when it's sold, go back after that because that's going to happen. But I want you to think about something here. But when you do this, the reason most people don't get the leads that point is because they're not pushing the envelope a little bit. I don't want you to just say, hey, there's home listed. You know, anyone wants to buy, blah, blah, blah. You have any questions? No, no, no. It's look at Mr. and Mrs. Jones. I know that 3 to 4 people are going to list their home in the next 90 days within a quarter-mile radius. We've done these stats. So I'm curious. I'm sure, you talk to people in the community, you have coffee, you got, you're in the same networking groups. Who do you know that's been whispering? Who do you know it's been on their mind about maybe getting out of this neighborhood? Like, I know there's going to be 3 to 4. Like, I'm pushing the envelope a little bit. Like, I know I'm giving you credit. I know people, right? Instead of just kind of being the passive of, hey, do you know anyone? Do you know anyone? I know you know somebody. It's going to happen within this community. Who do you know that's making those whispers? Okay. So push the envelope a little bit. Good stuff. Questions on any of the stuff that we went over today? Okay. So what I would suggest is there's other stuff. There's other predictive analytics calculations and stuff out there, but I think these are the best. Okay. These are the most tried and true that we've had some success with. Not that we just talked about, we've actually had success with these. So I would target some of these things, put some lists together. Each neighborhood might be different. You might live in a neighborhood where there are really not any condos. You might live in an area where it's almost all condos. So figure out what works best for you. But I would get those lists and start going after those people. And I think if you do that, you're gonna have a little bit more target prospecting. So your calls or your prospect in general is more efficient and it give you a better chance of finding some listings, which is what it's all about. Make sense?
Yeah, you might have already covered this. Are you talking about getting the list through title?
Yep.
Is there
You
any
can
other?
also pay for these lists.
Yeah,
Go through Arch, Cole, Vulcan 7, any of those types of things. But if you just went to your title rep and said, hey, look, I need a list of two-story homes bought 20 or more years ago. I need a list of condos, 1 or 2 bedrooms bought 3+ years. Just need these lists. They'll give you those lists, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The only thing that you would have to pay for is if you're going to call them, you're going to have to pay for the phone numbers. Okay. Because even if a title rep agrees to give you the phone numbers, they have to pay for the phone numbers. So then they're really doing you a solid if they give you the phone numbers, because there's no way to get free phone numbers anymore. So so you would have to pay for the numbers. Yeah, very good. All right, everybody, that's all I got. Hopefully you got something out of this. If you have any more questions on that, let me know. If you have any more ideas, thoughts, anything, feel free to let me know. Other than that, let's go out there. Let's have some fun. Let's find some listings.
Hey, Robert, were you gonna
Yep.
send us the link or something in the chat box?
Yeah, I was. Here, I'll give you some scripts. Seems like a good idea.
For the Airbnb information, Robert.
Yeah, I'll get a link and send that to you.
Thank you.
I don't have the link right now, but I will get that to you. Okay. Here's one for two-story homes. There you go. And let's get you one for condos. There's condos. And then let me get you the one for absentee owner. There you go. Don't say I don't love you.
Thank you.
All right, go make it happen.